Hey guys, I'm Jan from Functional Body Unit, and today's video is all about your shoulder internal rotation, why you should train it, and what is shoulder internal rotation good for. So enjoy the video. So let's talk about why you should train shoulder internal rotation. It's pretty simple. If we look at the shoulder joint and its function, the first thing we want to assess, whether it's after an injury or right away if you got a normal shoulder, we want to assess the shoulder internal rotation. The shoulder internal rotation and external rotation are the fundamental joint function of the shoulder. So before we get into linear abduction, adduction, and flexion of the shoulder, we want to test the internal and external rotation, and we want to train first our fundamental joint function, so the internal rotation and external rotation, before we go into crazy linear training like for shoulder flexion, for example. So the next question is, what is it good for? What is shoulder internal rotation good for? In terms of longevity and health of your shoulder joint, that's a very good indicator how healthy and how well you can move your shoulder if I test your internal rotation. So that's one thing. The next thing, and what is it good for? If you do handstands or a lot of overhead presses like snatches, which are so common in nowadays gyms, then you should really have a good shoulder internal rotation, because as you go into flexion over your head, your shoulder internally rotates. And not only shoulder internal rotation is necessary here, but also external rotation. You see, if I have the barbell here or just in a handstand, I have to make damn sure that I'm able to go actively in shoulder external rotation here in a 90-degree angle at least. And for shoulder internal rotation, my humerus goes into internal rotation as I go into the snatch or the handstand or the overhead press. So that's why it's good to train shoulder internal rotation. So a quick way to train your shoulder internal rotation, I'm gonna demonstrate you one exercise, the shoulder internal rotation pails and rails in a sleeper position, to really start working on your shoulder internal rotation and at its active range. So you should increase your active and passive range if you have a very bad shoulder internal rotation. And if you have a good shoulder internal rotation, you should do them as well, because if you don't use it, you lose it. So if you don't use your shoulder internal rotation in your daily life or in your training, then you're probably gonna lose it. So let's jump in the exercise. I'm gonna explain it to you one set, and you can do that as a follow along routine, or you can do that just 3 times or 4 times a week, okay? So for this exercise and for a lot of other mobility exercises, it's good if you do them as often as you can, because the more you move your joint in these specific ranges of motion, and the more you train your joints at your end ranges of motion, the more your central nervous system adapts and the faster you progress, okay? Of course, if you are sore from pails and rails, you shouldn't be going for another set the next day or just right away. Just relax and take your rest time. But if you feel good the other day, the next day, then definitely try to go for another set or 2 for the pails and rails, okay? So let's jump into the exercise. I have the yoga block just for my head, so my spine stays neutral here. And I'm going in this sleeper position here. As I said, my head is neutral in one line. And for this one, for internal rotation, you have a few different options here. You can either start with a 90-degree angle here from your elbow to your shoulder joint, or just slightly an angle here, or even down here. That depends on in which ranges of motion you are training and what are your specific needs are for the sports that you do, okay? So basically, let's start with a 45-degree angle here. That's just the normal shoulder internal rotation we test. So make sure the 45-degree angle here, and from here, just push your hand down slowly and carefully. Make sure your shoulder stays on the ground always and not is lifting off of the ground, okay? So as I press my hand down, as my shoulder lifts off, I just want to go back and hold that stretch here. You feel a twisting sensation in your shoulder. That's what we want. Just enjoy this stretch. Take a deep breath and breathe out slowly. And as you breathe out, just go deeper in the stretch if you can. If not, just hold it. And we're gonna hold that for 2 minutes. After the 2 minutes, we ramp up our pelvis contraction. So the pelvis contraction is basically pushing this hand into the other, so in this direction up. But we want to ramp it up. So if you just do 100% of your maximum effort into your hand, it might happen that you injured yourself. So we want to do that slow, okay? So 30% of your pelvis contraction effort here in your hand, 40, 50, 60, 70. And if you can't go any harder, because when you go harder you feel maybe pain or something, just stop at 60% or 70%. That's totally fine, okay? But for all of you who don't have pain, and just ramp it up to 100. So 100% for 15 seconds into your hand. After the 15 seconds, immediately start the rails contraction. The rails is gonna be trying to push your hand by your own force down, okay? This won't happen because we are at our passive end range, okay? Remember, at our passive end range, we are not able to gain more ranges of motion actively because I press my hand passively down. I won't get into this range actively, okay? You see, my active shoulder rotation is around here and I can press it down even further, okay? So here is my stretch. I hold that stretch right here, gonna do the pelvis for 15 seconds as I said, and then the rails. I just want to irradiate all this tissue down here and try to fight that I can go deeper with my hand. I don't push with my upper hand, that's just the support, the passive support. And after the 15 seconds of rails, I stay in the same stretch for another minute and repeat the pelvis and rails once. So one set should be around 4 minutes, and that's a really good time under tension for your shoulder joint to get more mobile. So if you got questions about mobility, about shoulder internal rotation, or just in general, please leave a comment below. If you got some feedback or some suggestions, also leave a comment. And if you want, please subscribe to our channel for more updates and infos about mobility, about bodyweight training, handstands, and calisthenics. If you are interested in more detailed information and in-depth mobility knowledge, visit our website. We got some online Keen Stretch courses, 3 classes per week. We got some online coaching personally designed for your individual needs. And yeah, just visit our website, and thanks for tuning in today.